Ta-da! I'm keeping my peanut M&Ms hidden. Apparently there's a general consensus that peanut M&Ms are better than peanut butter M&Ms. And I have to heartily disagree. Hello! If you guys watched my Alicent sewing video that I recently did, that's why I'm actually wearing like a red and black outfit, because I just wanted to be equal here. I had an Alicent sewing video, and now that I'm doing this analysis video, I thought it'd only be fair to do a Team Black inspired outfit, and I don't own a lot of red or black, so this was kind of difficult. If you guys watched that Alicent video, you will know that House of the Dragon is one of my recent favorite TV shows. I have not watched Game of Thrones. In fact, well, that's not true. I have started watching it because my uncle told me that I'll understand House of the Dragon more if I go back and watch Game of Thrones. Is it a hot take to say it's not that, like, it's okay, it's fine. People who watch Game of Thrones when it came out would not stop telling us to watch Game of Thrones, and I'm watching, I'm like, this is your favorite? This is your fave? Like, really? For those of you who have not watched my previous videos, I studied costume design in college, which makes me an expert in costume design. I'm just kidding. And I've overall really enjoyed the costumes of House of the Dragon. Every time I want to say House of Dragons, House of the Dragon. A few caveats before we get into it. Like I said, I am not an expert in this. It's just a hobby and my degree from college that I barely did anything with. So I do not think that I am better than the costume designers and the costume crew who work tirelessly on the show and are experts in their fields. I would never think that. This is just a fun, subjective costume design opinion. Second of all, I'm not really going to be going into the history of the costumes, like the historical inspirations, that much. If I think it's important, I'll say it. But there's a lot of people on here already that do an absolutely amazing job and are experts at historical costuming. So I just kind of want to come from more of a costume design perspective. I think that's more fun for me. I enjoy it more. Third of all, I just wanted to thank everybody from the last video. A lot of you guys agreed with my thoughts and a lot of you guys disagreed with my thoughts, and I thought everybody overall stayed like really kind and respectful, which I was so hoping for. Like, good job everybody. Thank you so much. It was such an enjoyable experience to just see people's opinions, who agreed with me and didn't agree with me. I'm not really on social media like at all, so I don't really get people's contrasting opinions to myself. I'm a woman alone on an island over here. So it was nice getting to see people's opinions that were not my own. Thanks for keeping everything like fun and respectful in the comment section, even if you were disagreeing with me or disagreeing with each other. Just thank you. Last one is, I actually didn't remember this while I was watching the show because I just started watching it a couple months ago, but I did remember it while I was researching. House of the Dragon was one of the shows that continued filming during the writer's strike earlier this year, and I know that they had a reason. I think they said that they had finished writing before going into filming, so they were allowed to do it. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that that's probably not so great. I didn't work in film and television long enough to even become unionized, so I don't understand the ins and outs of unions, but I think people generally thought that that was a bad thing. So I don't want people to forget that, because I forgot it. But anyway, I did want to say that before we get started. Hold on. Oh, I have to start screen recording. Hello. Hold on. I'll start with screen recording and then I'll come back. I heard some clicking in the intro, so I changed to just my lapel, which is where it's supposed to go anyway. I just wanted to be fun. So first off, the two costume designers, there's one costume designer for season 1 and one costume designer for season through, and one costume designer for season 2. And season 1's is Janie Tamim. She's a French costume designer. I'm sorry, I'm absolutely butchering that pronunciation. I'm so sorry. And season 2 is Caroline McCall. I'm gonna pop them up right here so that you can see their names, because I'm probably mispronouncing everything. I don't do a lot of research beforehand into these videos. Now that I've done 2, I can say there is a pattern. And that is for one major reason. I love researching, but I do feel like if I'm coming from a costume design perspective, it is kind of ruining my experience if I go in knowing all of the costume designers' thoughts of what they want us to think and what they want us to believe and see about the costumes. Costumes should do their own job. The costume designer should not have to sit down in front of you and tell you what to believe and what to think. You should be able, and the costume design should be strong enough that you reap everything you should from the costume. So I will do research after filming and editing this video. Just know that, but I am going in pretty blind. I'm just going off of what I see, basically. So a couple of concepts before we get into character by character analysis. Everything looks nice and expensive, which is more than I can say for some shows. You can tell where somebody stands within the society of this show based on their clothing, which is absolutely awesome. Knowing how to weather something is very important. And the weatherers, people who do the weathering on the show, I think do a pretty good job, which we'll get to more with characters later. And also the fabrics all look very luxe and expensive, and they have a heft to them, which more expensive fabrics tend to have. So as far as general time period, I know that this is actually based off of like real history that I believe happened in England. I don't really know what exactly. My bangs look a little weird. You can definitely tell that their inspiration ranges from the Roman Empire to the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, and they kind of take equally from all three. I think they integrate these three really well and make them feel cohesive. Now, what I love for TV shows to get a little bit more experimental and not just go off of like Renaissance, medieval time periods, and also not just be inspired by Western fashion. Yes, but at the same time, this is a Game of Thrones spinoff, so like I'm not going to hold them to that too much. I just would like fantasy to maybe get a little bit more experimental with where they set things. I am having audio issues today for some reason. I probably have to restart my computer because I'm doing my audio through my computer. If I have to, I have to, but that's annoying. Okay, we're going to start off with Alicent and Rhaenyra, who are our two main characters. Oh, also one more caveat as we get into this. I do know that adult Rhaenyra, I'm going to call them like adult Rhaenyra and Alicent and young Rhaenyra and Alicent. Adult Rhaenyra is played by Emma Darcy, who is non-binary and goes by they, them pronouns. And in interviews, when they're talking about Rhaenyra, everyone tends to refer to her as her or she. So if I'm referring to the actor, something that I think is more allocated to the actor, I'll say they, them pronouns for Emma Darcy. And if I feel like it's more along the lines of something that would go to the character, I'll probably say she, her. I definitely just don't want to misgender Emma Darcy. Alicent and Rhaenyra. I really like with young Rhaenyra when you can tell that she is like very uncomfortable in the clothes that she is wearing or very comfortable. You can tell that she is much more comfortable in shorter hemlines, higher necklines, more utilitarian and useful clothing. Not to say that, you know, wearing more along the lines of like something that's a little more daring or whatever is bad. It's just her character. She is a dragon rider, and you can tell that's where she's comfortable just through the clothes that she wears. I also love how her and Alicent, their costumes look much more similar when they are younger to show how much of an impact they have on each other's lives, especially what they view as a positive influence on each other's lives at this point. Like you can see like this is a very Alicent-esque costume. And then if you scroll down, she has very similar gowns to Rhaenyra, and they just get more different as time moves on, especially as we get into season 2. She's definitely more comfortable in these costumes and even like almost like a fighting costume here. And then you can see that she's less comfortable and much more like stiff, you know, showing off a little bit more skin, which neither of those things are bad. We're just talking about her as a character and what she personally is comfortable in. Like this kind of off the shoulder thing is kind of meant to make, I would think, the actor feel a little bit more uncomfortable because it would probably constantly be like coming up. So it's just supposed to make the character look uncomfortable. And this kind of stiffer fabric with this very high, like rough almost, also makes her look pretty uncomfortable. I will say, even though generally I do like Rhaenyra's costumes, I do not like her wedding costume. The hair looks like a basket. The wedding dress looks cheap to me. There's something about it, and it looks like a 1960s outfit to me. And all of a sudden that inspiration came in and I don't know where it came from. This is from an earlier scene. Sorry that it's not a clear photo. I left my notes in here. That's fine. You can see my notes. This white dress that she wore earlier, I actually feel like is a little bit better for a wedding dress. I like the layers. I feel like it looks a little bit more regal than this. This doesn't look quite regal to me for some reason, at least in the world of the show. Inauguration, like when she gets, not inaugurated, but when she gets chosen as heir, I really love this. This has huge Byzantine, like things you would see on castle and cathedral walls. And so in our minds, it comes off as very regal. And I just love this, like this diadem right here, the whole thing, great. You could literally see like a painting of this or a fresco up on a castle wall in my mind. And then we get to young Alicent. I really love this dress. This is one of my favorite dresses in the show, period. In fact, my gown that I made that was inspired by Alicent was inspired by this dress. I absolutely love it. The detailing of the different texture here with like the bias tape almost, and then all these little straps is just gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I love how she wears blue, like she wears maybe like what would be considered her own color or an offshoot of her father's green color before she's married. And then once she gets married and starts having kids, she almost dresses in a way that is like too old for her, almost like she's filling the shoes that she shouldn't have to fill, which I really like. Like this dress is just too matronly. I do kind of like this one, but still it feels a little bit off, and it's definitely on purpose. I can definitely see that. This one is another one where it's just everything is like so close to her face, and it's a big fur, and it just doesn't feel like the character, especially with the costumes that we got when she was unmarried. Now I go into adult Rhaenyra and Alicent. This is a costume that I really like in theory, but when the actor moves, it just looks kind of odd. And again, when they're standing, it looks fine. It looks amazing. But when they start to move, it's supposed to be inspired by Renaissance necklines, which were very wide, like basically off the shoulder. And I understand that. Just in movement, it looked a little odd. The details of dragon in Rhaenyra's costumes is really, really cool. Like this little bottom of the neckline here. The epaulets, they do a lot of epaulets for this, which are very dragon-y. I'll skip ahead to show you another example. There's scales here. There's scales in the younger Rhaenyra costume as well, but it's definitely kicked into high gear once Rhaenyra is trying to fight for her inheritance. This one is especially my favorite. I know some people aren't gonna like this one because it's a lot, but the literal dragon epaulets here is such a cool detail. I love it. And I also love this character in general. As Rhaenyra and Alicent as two characters get more separate and as they start fighting with each other, especially as we get into the war, colors get more and more aligned with their houses. So like characters will wear more colors that aren't black and red before the war, but once the war starts, everyone in that house is wearing black and red. And in the Hightower household, again, characters will wear maybe a little bit more variation of color, but once Aegon takes over as king and they're fighting for it, then everyone just starts wearing green all the time. I also like the hair choices. I wish they would lean into it a little bit more, but you can definitely see this early Renaissance inspiration. You can see it in these paintings here. I wish they would lean into it more, a little bit like this. I feel like this would look great and still give off a little bit of an effortless look. I really love this coat. I want it so badly. It's so pretty. And is that like, sorry, I'm having to lean off screen to see what I'm talking about. There's like fire applique, and it looks like either a suede and a leather or a velvet and a leather. Ooh, we'll get more into details. There's some things after we break down characters, there's some things I want to get into a little bit more, and that's details, that will be its own section, don't worry. And then grown-up Alicent, while you could see a lot of her relief patterns and patterns on her clothing as dragon-y, I see it more as snakeskin, and I think that's supposed to show that she's very intelligent, she's very wily. You can see here that this has a definitive like snakeskin sheen. I even feel like these little arms right here have a little bit of feeling of like snakeskin. This pattern I feel like gives off slightly, it's a relief pattern it looks like from far away. Always quite snaky, and I love it. Also, you can see that for the small amount of time that she actually gets to be in charge in the patriarchal society in which they live, she wears very high necklines to garner more respect. I also love the embroidery and applique placement. I always think it's very beautiful and delicate, but it just adds so much to her costumes. I also see a lot of inspiration from, like, I think I said this in my video, romantic depictions of medieval and Renaissance times. I see a lot of that in her costumes, and I just think it's really pretty. Okay, I'm having so many audio problems, it's not even funny. I restarted everything in the hopes that would make it better. Oh my gosh. Next characters is Baela and Rhaena. I love Rhaena so much. If she dies, I'm gonna be so sad. They are another set of characters that as the story goes on, they start to dress a little bit differently. You can see here, they dress quite similarly here. It's almost like twin, almost, outfits here. I feel like this is very similar in silhouette, especially. I do love this fabric. This is gorgeous. And here as well, like similar-ish outfits, both of them equally looking kind of similar in color and silhouette and even details. Like here, both of them just wear one necklace and a dress, and the necklines are pretty similar here. with that little V at the front of both. But as they both are chosen for different jobs, Baela is to go and fight because she is a dragon rider, so she wears much more of a wartime garment, which I love. Oh my gosh, this is another one that I love. Again, I think it's like fire. And this coat, oh my gosh, so good. I love it. But Rhaena doesn't have a dragon, so she's kind of shipped off, kind of cast aside. And so she still wears a dress, but also their colors are different. Baela wears a very vibrant, true red, I would say, like a cherry red. And I think because Rhaena is struggling a little bit more with her identity, she kind of gets like a sadder, more purpley red. It kind of shows that Baela's ready to go and passionate, and Rhaena's kind of questioning everything and questioning herself especially. You can even see here, Rhaenyra's wearing a very neutral red, Baela is wearing a very vibrant red, and Rhaena is wearing a very bluish, sad red. This show does very, very simple color theory, but it shows that you don't have to rock the boat, that good color theory is good color theory, and people will be able to understand a lot, especially when you have a lot of characters and a lot of things happening that you have to pay attention to. It's nice that the costumes are very like straightforward in what they're telling you. Appreciate it. I also love Rhaena's little neck thing. I want to crochet something like this. This is so cute, kind of like a scarf. I want it. Didn't you love that instead of just doing character analysis, sometimes I just tell you like, I think this is cute, and then we move on. I don't have any purpose for saying it. Again, you get dragon details, flame with Baela, and just like dragon head applique. It's so gorgeous. It's such, again, I can't get into the details yet, but the details in these costumes are gorgeous. And then we're going to talk about another set of siblings who dress quite differently, and it's very fun to see. Aemond and Aegon. Aemond, who again is another warrior, dragon rider, he wears very utilitarian clothing, and his clothing colors are very almost like either camouflage or utilitarian. They're much more earthy green colors. He wears a lot of leather, a lot of suede, armor-esque looking clothing because he is out fighting. By the way, they knew what they were doing by giving him a scar and an eye patch. How are you not supposed to think that this character is incredibly cool, even though he does so many messed up things? I can't get into the details yet. I just want to talk about the details all the time. We'll get there. And then you have Aegon, who wears almost like a bluish green, like a blue with a little bit of a green color in it. And also, he wears very different fabrics. There's a lot of silk, there's a lot of wool, like a lot of very fine fabrics that you would think royalty would wear when not fighting. So it's you can just look at the two of them and they look very, very different. I even really love this kind of, it's almost like a mantle piece that royalty wears in a lot of their paintings that they would have commissioned, but there's no gems in it, which I almost feel like shows that he's kind of a empty king. He doesn't really have anything to give to the country or the area that they rule. I don't really know like the map of the Westeros. I don't understand anything, which might be reading a lot into that costume, but that's what I got when I saw it because Alicent wears a similar one and hers has jewels all over it. He wears applique, he wears a lot more accessories and a lot more accessorizing on his own clothing to kind of show Aemond is very serious, Aemond is a warrior, Aegon is not. Okay, so there was actually a pretty big point I completely forgot to bring up, which is I saw an interview by accident, it was on YouTube Shorts, where the actor who plays Aegon was talking about how the short hair that Aegon wears is completely purposeful. Him and the designer talked about it together. Since a lot of Velaryons tend to have that long straight hair, they thought that him having like this very au naturel looking short hairstyle will kind of set him apart as like a rebel. He doesn't really take tradition seriously, which seems to be important to a lot of like older Velaryons. I just thought that was a really cool point to see another difference between Aegon and Aemond. Aemond knows High Velaryon, he does all the studying, he wears his hair in the traditional way. I just think that's another really interesting difference between the two of them. Okay, back to past me. Bye-bye. And then you get to the other sibling, Helaena. And I feel like Helaena, there's a little bit of identity missing in her costumes, which I feel like is on purpose. I feel like she dresses very similarly to her mother, but it's a little bit simpler, almost like a little bit more hollow. And I think that's to show, because she's one of the magical people in this world that can apparently know how things are going to go into the future. She knows that, like they say, she's a chess on the piece, right? She's not a player. She's a piece on the board. That's what it is. She's not a player. She's a piece on the board. And she understands that. But I do love, I feel like this looks like a little bit like beetle wings and she's like doing a little embroidery of a spider. I want them to lean more into the bug motif. I think the bug motif is in her room more than her costumes, and I would love for them to lean into that more in season 3. Please do. But I think her costumes are also quite beautiful. Like, I don't have any complaints. I think as Helaena gets to be more of like self-assured in herself and knowing what she wants, they'll probably do the same thing they did with Alicent, where Alicent, when she gets older, you can just tell that her style is her style. She's figured it out. She knows what she wants, and she's very self-assured in the way that she dresses, and Helaena hasn't gotten there yet. And I do think that's all on purpose. I do think they kind of make her like a mini-me of Alicent right now on purpose. Very excited to see where they go with Helena's costumes in season 3. And then we get to Alice Rivers, one of my favorite characters in season 2. We love a weird magical girl here, always. She doesn't wear very many costumes, but the ones that she does wear, I want them both. Like this little, it has like fall leaves on it. It's an apron with fall leaves. Like, how great would that be for right now? Because I'm already in a fall mood. I know it's August, I don't care. And then also the layering here, where it's like a small like doublet or jacket over a gown, is really great. It adds some depth to what could be like a very simple one layer costume. I think it's a great plan to also just change up the silhouette of her costumes from other characters. I don't have much to say about Kristen Cole, because he wears the same costume, and I'm not really into armor. I don't focus too much on armor. That's just a personal thing. But somebody pointed this out on YouTube Shorts that I was watching recently. Look at this beautiful like necklacey thing. I want this. I'm trying to convince my mother. My mother is a jewelry maker. I am trying to convince her to make this a similar version of this for me so badly. Put in the comments, would you buy something like that? Because that might convince her to make one for me selfishly, and then maybe she'll make it on her shop. And then Mysaria, I love how differently she looks from the other characters, whereas the very rich characters wear a lot of accessories and a lot of layers and a lot of just accessorizing on their fabric in general with applique and embellishment. She just wears a nice, beautifully draped fabric. And I love that because I think that shows two things. The actor who plays her is of Japanese descent or partial Japanese descent. I can definitely see some Japanese inspiration in the draping, but I think it also shows that she is a very, first of all, intelligent character because of the simplicity. Not that simplicity necessarily means intelligent. Alicent is not simple in the way she dresses, and yet you know she is an incredibly intelligent character, but it almost gives off like professorial vibes. I couldn't say that correctly. It gives off professorial vibes, as well as she's kind of a spy. That's kind of her job at this moment. And I think it shows that she does not show her hand. She doesn't want you to glean too much from just looking at her, right? And I really love that. I think that shows in her costumes. You can't really glean a lot from her. Very interesting. And then we'll move on to Rhaena and Corlys. They are a couple in the show, but I love how you can glean certain differences between them. First of all, I love how they implement the sea, like the little bit of wave here, because they're this, I don't know where they live, but they are like in charge of like a sailing fishing community. Sorry that I don't know anything or where they come from. I'm sorry. But you can see waves here, this beautiful like seafoam blue that she's wearing. I also like that she's the first character to not wear a dress, I believe, because of course they live in a patriarchal society, so a lot of them do wear dresses until it's like wartime. But she was just wearing pants and a doublet, like a long doublet in the first season, and I really love that. It shows that she doesn't really let anyone tell her who she is or what she should do. I love Rhaena. I love Rhaenys. Have I been saying Rhaena? I think I've been saying Rhaena. When they go into wartime, I think this is a season 2. Sorry that it's really small. I'll try to make it bigger. The detail, there's like a waving pleat or like a wave-inspired fabric on her lapel. Really love that in that deep, deep blue. Then you have Corlys. While his wife wears a lot of silks and like shiny fabric, he wears what looks like to be a linen or light wool or cottons because he sails. Anything that is like a shiny or delicate fabric would get ruined with the sea air. So I love that they have him wear these very utilitarian, even though it has high quality and high accessorizing, pleating, detailing, it is a much more utilitarian fabric than what his wife wears because he is out in the sea. Other people that he is juxtaposed by are his 2 sons, Alan and Adam, as his very utilitarian fabrics look very fancy and rich. Theirs looks very worn, like they've been wearing the same outfits for years because they have. So while You can tell that they've taken good care of their clothing. You can tell that they've had it for a very, very long time. Again, the weathering people, the people who are in charge of weathering the clothing, do a very good job with these costumes. You can just see that they're well worn. They're well loved clothing. They're clothing that they've had to wear for long periods of time. I get to talk about the thing that I've been wanting to talk about this whole time, which is details. This show is so good at the details. I could literally look at just a screenshot for hours and find new things that I didn't see before. The seaming on Rhaenyra's coat with this little, like, do you see this thing at the neck? This detailing at the neck at the back that also looks very dragon inspired. It's covered mostly by hair, and yet it's so beautiful. Also, Daemon, he wears a lot of black, but it's not just black. He wears a lot of different textures to make things pop. And also there's always like a relief pattern on his leather or whatever fabric he's wearing. Again, I talked about this earlier. These two, most of the dragon riders are on Rhaenyra's side. I feel like there's a lot more of a dragon motif. I didn't really talk about Jacaerys, and it's because he usually wears like the same one or two things throughout, especially the second season. But I really love Baela and him get this kind of tucked in half capelet thing, and it's so unique, but immediately your brain recognizes that that's kind of what soldiers wear in a lot of different things. It's kind of a capelet that hangs off of one side, and I love that it's sewn into their coats. It's very cool. Aemond gets a couple of very cool I don't even know what to call this, like relief pattern is the best I could think of on his leather doublets. Like this one looks like snakes that are intertwining. I love that detail. It's so cool. Here's a close-up of the coat that Rhaenys I showed earlier. And again, they have so many different fabrics, textures, and patterns to make even something that is all the same color very interesting. It takes a lot of work to make something look this simple. Yet when you look at it, first of all, it's fit to the gods. Everything fits everyone so well. Second of all, there's details in every inch of you can just tell that there's a lot of love going into the costume design. Also, there's a big difference between House Black and House Green, and that is that House Black dresses much more androgynously than House Green. And I think that's to show that even though this is a patriarchal society, because Rhaenyra is at the head of Team Black, there's a lot more equality. And it's not perfect, but there's more. So everyone dresses a little bit more similar. There's a lot more androgyny. The women are expected to only dress incredibly feminine in House Green. So now you might have realized that I set this video up a little bit differently, and that is because I think the best thing that this show does, they show you the most about a character through their costume, through contrast to other characters. That's why I did like basically sets of two, because the best way to show what I mean was by showing a contrast in another character. I think it's because this show sets up two people as foils to each other very often. Alicent and Rhaenyra, they are foils for each other. Baela and Rhaena. Aemond and Aegon is another big one in the show. And I think that's a very interesting way to come at costume design in this show when the show is so character driven. I think that's great. That is an awesome way to come at the costume design. Overall, very happy with costume design. Everything that I've said that is negative have really just been nitpicks. I don't have anything huge to say. Sometimes the fit of something is off. Sometimes I just don't personally like a costume. But overall, very, very strong costume design. By the way, I get a lot of my pictures from Pinterest, and when did AI take over Pinterest? I was so scared that I was accidentally going to pick an outfit that had been like AI generated. I was so scared. So if that happened, I'm so sorry. I tried my best to double check myself. That is all my thoughts. That's generally how I feel about the show. If you want to see me hate on something, I have some of those coming up because I am a hater at heart. If you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe and comment. All those things really help me out. I will be doing more of these costume analysis videos in the future because y'all really seem to like it and I really enjoy doing them. And I hope you had a good time watching, and I hope to see you back here next time. Bye.